yeah, just as a little workaround. Okay, my name is John Marandas. I'm an immigration attorney. My last name is actually Greek. My family, my wife, and my kids are Nicaraguan, and I do speak Spanish, about 80% Spanish fluency. I started out practicing law in my father's law office back in 1997. He at the time was, well, actually early on, he was one of a handful of AILA, which is American Immigration Lawyers Association, AILA members in Oregon. Um, I ended up opening up my own practice when my first child was a little bit like within weeks of my first child being born in 2001. I now focus my practice in the area of immigration law, specifically within sort of subcategories of family immigration, removal, defense, and appeals, and handling probably most of our cases are fairly complex. We do humanitarian cases, asylum, U visa, T visas, VAWA cases. I'm a past AILA chair in Oregon. I used to also be the ICE liaison on behalf of AILA, and now I'm at the Oregon State Bar Board of Governors as a volunteer there. Um, I'll save a little bit of the talk on kind of what we're seeing, what we're doing these days, but that's my intro. And sorry if that was too long, John.
Oh, that's all
Okay.
great. Thank you.
Okay.
Now,
Sure.
Annabelle, you go next.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Annabelle Carlos, and I am the Public Affairs and Communications Manager at the Washington County Sheriff's Office. I'd like to apologize. I am sick. I've been sick all week. I was hoping to kick it by today, but it was important for me and for the Sheriff's Office that I be here today. So you'll have to excuse me if I start coughing or stumble through my words here, but let's see, I've been with the county since 2010. I started in environmental health with the health department. I did that for about 2 years before going over to the sheriff's office in 2012. Started out doing community outreach, and now I oversee public affairs. My direct supervisor is the sheriff, Sheriff Caprice Massey. I did work under Sheriff Pat Garrett before her. Besides that, a little bit personal about me. Born and raised in Oregon. My father is from Peru. My mother is from Ecuador. They came here in the 70s. My brothers and I were all born and raised here. And I have 2 kids that hopefully you will not hear in the background. I've sworn them all into their rooms, and hopefully everyone's quiet for the rest of the night. Thank you.
And Mr. Herrera. Please.
Do you say Herrera?
Yep.
That's me. Hi everyone. I am John Herrera, and I have the privilege to be the director of the Immigration Legal Services Program at Catholic Charities. I'm an attorney in Colombia, South America.
Oh.
Here I am an accredited representative. I went to the law school, and I am an asylee myself. I came to the country seeking asylum, so I know what is the journey of being an immigrant, an asylum seeker, and person of color. I have been practicing immigration law since 2006 when I became an accredited representative, and I have been the director of the Immigration Legal Service Program at Catholic Charities since 2014. I have worked with John Marandas and for numerous times and doing collective work around immigrants and refugees. I have 2 kids. One is 32 years old, graduated from Lewis and Clark, and my youngest son is 19, and he is now in Rochester, New York, at the Rochester Institute of Technology. So I'm proud to be, a resident of Oregon the last 20 years. I'm here as a product of being helped by the system of the nonprofit and the system of accepting immigrants from around the world. I am an asylum seeker, not different than many millions that are knocking the doors in the southern border. So that's me.
Great, thank you, John.
Thank you.
And now Hector. See, you have to unmute, Hector. You have to unmute. Okay,
I got it. Hola, my name's Hector Hinojosa. I am a longtime resident out in Hillsborough. We came here, or settled here, I should say, in 1961. I was born in Mexico, Matamoros, Tamaulipas, right at the tip of Texas. At the age of 2, we jumped over to the Harlingen, Texas, which I thought I was a Tejano, only to find out when I went back that no, they say I'm from the Norte. So I guess I'm an Oregon Mex now. I didn't know there was such a thing, but I guess I'm a product of it because I speak Spanglish, neither English nor Spanish. And at the age I'm getting at, I'm forgetting both languages. I don't know what I'm going to do. But I have been a community advocate ever since we arrived here. There were probably 12 families that settled here when we did, all Tejanos, all Catholic. We're the ones that started Centro Cultural, Virginia Garcia, and many other programs around the area that are now 50 years old and standing. I'm just absolutely amazed. And I say that the way I introduced our group because today we have a family in Hillsborough from different parts of Mexico, different parts of Latin America, South America, but we're still pretty much 85% Mexicanos, Mexican descent. Most of us associate ourselves with Catholicism as a faith base, and that's important in the work that I do as well. I try to do interfaith work besides community work. I try to have been reaching out to more of a global citizenship. Can you guys hear me, or am I going in and out?
it's kind of in and out.
Okay. Okay. Sorry about that. Let me know if it gets bad. I'll go outside. So I was blessed October 22nd by the Mexican consulate with an award called Otil, which means in Nahuatl means path. So my nickname is now Pathfinder. And I laugh at that because I had no idea Mexico was doing this. And apparently, as Mexican citizens that are out of the country, creating welcoming communities for Mexicanos, Mexico is giving them this award. And so I was blessed to be a recipient of 2024. So I now laugh with my compadres and friends that I run around with a new wolf pack. Joan Baez, just the list is absolutely amazing if you look at it. And there's Hector Hinojosa 2024. So I'm super proud and humbled by that recognition. But my work in the community continues. Right now, I'm obviously grieving for what we're about to go through. The first Trump era, and John was part of it. We did marched around the county courthouse every Monday for 2.5 years, getting ICE out of the courthouse. Chief Justice Martha Walters back then agreed, and not because we were marching. There were friends of the court that filed papers. And she finally agreed that, yeah, they need to get out of there in sensitive areas. So looks like we might have to head back to the courthouse, John, and do some more demonstrating and marching again. But yeah, we're made a full circle. So with that, I will shut up and welcome everybody, and good to see you. I'm glad you're here.
Well, Mary is next.
Hi, good evening. I'm Mary Johnson. I was Mary Pavlakovich Johnson. I'm I immigrated from the old Yugoslavia, and my father escaped from Yugoslavia into Austria, spent almost 2.5 years in Austria before he came to the United States. And then fortunately, I was blessed to be able to come in 1960 to the United States. I have, during that, from 1960 until now, I have become a naturalized citizen. I work as a co-chair with social justice at St. Juan Diego Parish, and am in the progress of trying to learn Spanish. But at 73, it is harder. I'm bilingual, but I'll tell you, I can say buenas noches. I can, say those quick little como está, and then I die quickly with that. But I am learning. And being an immigrant, I know, and having lived under a communist government in Yugoslavia and went to school there, my heart is just aching now, just to see where we're at right now. So my support is based on my history. So I don't have too much more to say than that. I have been an educator and am retired. I am blessed that I'm alive because most of my family in Croatia, I lost aunts. I lost an uncle at 63 during the war in 1990. So it has been a fight for democracy for a long, long time. So I am blessed that I am here, and I'm thankful to God that I'm here. So that's it. Amen.
Thank you. Now, just a little bit about myself. I'm an immigrant from north of the border. My father moved to Canada in the 1950s, and I came into the world in Halifax, Nova Scotia. And I lived all across Canada as the Canadian Trans-Canada Highway moved. Then in the 1960s, we moved down to Southern California, a big change, because I thought that all the cars and even the bicycles had air conditioning. But one thing that's struck me when I was in elementary school is many of my Chicano classmates would be there one semester and then gone the next because, hey, they were following the crops, and following the growing seasons. And then I've been hanging out with Hector for a long time, even at baseball games. But I remember a couple of years, maybe 2019, 2018, I had gone to Concordia University for a meeting with Emerge and some other interfaith leaders. And one of the speakers, we broke, had a gathering, and then we broke into different classrooms and stuff. And I listened to a young mother and her son speak. They had come from, Honduras, where they had been basically, brutalized and so on by the extractive nature of the industries. And at the end of her presentation, they asked everyone who was not born in the United States to stand up. And I stood up. And in a lot of ways, I felt alone, just like I assumed they did. Then I worked with the poor and marginalized downtown Portland. Our executive director that I worked with, she was from Colombia. She moved here to Philadelphia. Her husband had gone ahead to go to medical school. And Patricia landed in Philadelphia, not knowing any English at all. And what happened is they were driving back from the airport. They were involved in like a fender bender, but she couldn't understand what was going on because everybody was, kind of yelling at her, yelling and so on. And that kind of showed to me is if you don't know the language, you can't communicate. And if you need help, that help may not be there simply because you can't communicate. And then as Hector, I've been involved in visiting the courthouse a few times. And I think this is a positive story to end off. My wife and I went to Lincoln City. I have a cane and my wife is blind. So we tried to walk down to the beach, and it was a long and winding road, really with kind of wet and stuff. But there were two young people from Venezuela who helped us up, to get up the cliff. And I'm going, wow. We communicated using Google Translate. And then since then, my Spanish, I think, has gotten better. I'm not going to use it now, but because I've made myself humble and just like I've humbled myself and not trying to be a savior or anything. And so I've gone to parties and everything. And then educationally, I've been up since 4. A certificate from Villanova's immigration advocacy program. And it was the first online program. John, you might know Michelle Pistone. And she was the instructor. And we learned how to work with immigrants, the nuts and bolts of normal immigration, religious visas, and so on and so forth. Then we went into T visas and asylum cases. And most recently, I've been accompanying people to the immigration hearings. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Did we do Antonio or Tonio or what's his name?
Was he able to get in?
Is it Tonio or something? Somebody's down there.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's not ice, huh?
And Corey's gone.
Yeah, if Tonio wants to call my cell phone, I can put it on speaker if you want to make an introduction.
Yeah.
If you'd like.
Yeah, Tonio, we don't hear you. So John K, where is Tonio coming from, or what is the background?
I'm not sure. I'm wondering if he is from St. Juan Diego or another parish.
Okay. Right.
And then-
So, hola Toño, ¿hablas español? Sí, no sé, no te estamos escuchando, no sé si puedes llamar a John Marandas en el teléfono que está en el chat y su número es
503.
Yeah, go ahead.
341 1772. 503-341-1772.
Y Toño, ojalá que puedas escuchar lo que estamos diciendo y si no, lo lamentamos mucho que no podemos comunicarnos.
Yeah, Hector, I know you joked about hoping this ICE isn't listening. I'll be honest, maybe I'm a little overcautious here, but I do assume that like I talked to a client earlier and they were asking me questions about, ICE knocking on the door and what happens. And I am being cautious to the point where I'm assuming ICE could be listening to my conversation, and I hope that's not the case. But I know that, as much as I want my clients to be free and be with their families, I also, as an attorney, can't advise people to run, to hide, to violate federal law. And so, that's one thing I just, it's really important that we do our best to help people understand their rights in this country, but we also want to make sure this is an administration that's already sort of stated that they're going to potentially prosecute people that get in their way. And we just want to make sure we're careful as well as advocates. So anyway, yeah, not to be overly, paranoid, but it's just good to be concerned. And I remember my dad telling me that when I was practicing law, he would say, just assume that the prospective client that's come in for the consultation is maybe not a real client, that there may be a undercover federal agent seeing if you're giving them advice to violate the law. So not that we were violating the law or we would have, but still just to be careful. Because yeah, we can, as immigration attorneys, especially when somebody walks in our office and they're undocumented, we just have to be careful. We can outline their options, we can tell them what the law says, but we just really can't encourage them to violate the law. But then we can let them make their own decision once they've received information on the law. I don't know, John K. Sorry, we got 3 Johns, so we got to go John, last initial. John K. Do you want us to start talking about kind of what we're seeing, what we're hearing?
Yeah,
I think
that would be really helpful.
Okay. And John Herrera, we both were on that call 2 days ago, right? With Ayla group.
Yeah,
Ayla.
yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I can talk a little bit. I mean, I told the group about one of my clients that received a knock on the door last Sunday, without giving confidential information about this person. I'll just say he has a final order of removal. Somebody who's gone up and down kind of the process, went to court, lost in court, filed an appeal, lost the appeal at several levels, has a Ninth Circuit mandate, meaning kind of a final order. And then we were actually in the midst of, or in the middle of, a U visa for a victim of a crime, and a pretty strong U visa, and it's pending. And that alone, during the first Trump administration, was enough to allow a person to stay in the country. He has received stays of removal, which is you can apply for a stay directly from ICE, and sometimes they'll issue them. You don't always need it if you have enough proof of positive equities or hardship. But in this case, they knocked on the door and they asked for him. He actually was not home. He was working, but we had this discussion in the larger group, and the consensus, or kind of what people are seeing, is that ICE is definitely going after people with final orders. They're going after people with final orders with or without criminal backgrounds. I posed a question to the AILA listserv yesterday because I've got a client with a check-in next week, and it's a person with a final order, another person with a very strong U visa that's pending. And it's a person actually with a stay of removal that's in effect, and it's valid until I think like June of 2025. So you would think they'd be safe at least until that date. But one of the attorneys, that's Stephen Manning, who's been working real closely with AILA National and other organizations. He replied to all saying, he believes that even folks without a criminal background, even with a stay, with a U visa pending, are in, you know, their potential targets. And so that's the saddening part, is that, you know, even folks without a criminal conviction, even folks that are victims of crimes are being targeted. And yeah, and even under the first Trump administration, we didn't see that. We had, you know, we were still able to negotiate with ICE. We were still able to approach ICE and ask them to look at all the facts and circumstances. But it doesn't appear that that's possible now. We're going to find out when I go in next week and plead the best case we can. But you know, that seems to be that, you know, anybody with a final order is in the crosshairs. We also know that today, I think the president signed the Laken Riley Act. So anybody who's undocumented would be automatically detained and taken to Tacoma, and would not, it appears they would not have the right to request release on bond. So we're going to see lots of detentions. And yeah,
Hector?
I think Fort Hector.
Yeah, the three Johns. We had a meeting a couple of years back. In fact, that was back, Annabelle, when Sheriff Pat Garrett was still here. And LULAC, which you see behind me here, 95 years of advocacy in the United States, originated and started in Texas, and very strong here in Oregon. We're on our way to fifth county that'll have offices in Oregon, so we're happy with that. One of the things that we do is try to get engaged and involved with rapid response type of activity and work, and that's to get out there and be a witness to what's going on, verify that ICE is there. And I've already been called out, believe it or not, to an elementary school. Can you imagine that? So ICE is back, they're coming strong. When I met with them in Sheriff Pat Garrett's office, they were blunt and said, no, we will arrest wherever we find them. We will go, because we're trying to get them kicked out of the county courthouse and stay out of elementary schools and churches. And they said, nope, no bets, no dice. We're going to arrest them wherever we find them. So, and with Trump's attitude, and ICE, quite frankly, told us that, look, Trump's got his orders. We've got our orders. And they come directly from him, high up. I want to add this because I had no idea. ICE actually falls under Homeland Security.
Mm-hmm.
Homeland Security is a humongous organization. FBI, CIA, and they were all present in the room in the sheriff's office, and there were 15 federal organizations there. 15. And only about 15 of us community advocates. But yeah, they and I don't blame them. That's their marching orders. Arrest them wherever you can. And so that makes my work harder as an advocate of making sure that, and that's what's different today from last time, is that before I felt comfortable that if somebody's civil rights were being violated, that we stood a chance at getting them released. Not this time. I'm concerned about immediate deportation. My understanding is that 2 months ago, U.S. Supreme Court said we're not going to hear appeals. ICE has the final. Last time we did this was in 1930. 60% of those people that were deported were U.S. citizens. So I suspect the same thing's going to happen here. A lot of racial profiling based on color of skin, surname, and if you can't prove your identity, you're going on. So yeah, I'm scared. I'm scared about what's going on this time.
Hector, just curious, who was being targeted at the elementary school? Was it one of the parents then?
Yes, and so the stories and the things that we were actually witnessing and filming was father being, if you can picture this in your mind, the bus pulls out in front of your house. 3 of your children are waiting to get, they're in line waiting to get on the bus, and ICE shows up and starts harassing dad, asking for papers and causing a scene in front of these children. You talk about trauma. They traumatized probably 50 kids on that bus. So yeah, that's what we were fighting for. Stop doing that, you know. Wait till the kids leave the get on the bus and go to school, and then go and approach the person. And they basically said, no bets, no bets. All bets are off. So yeah, that's awful to witness that, to see that. The children were just traumatized, yelling and screaming and hollering. Whew, it was a hard witness.
You know, I'm curious what the group thinks. I mean, I there was a client in my office yesterday, and they said, you know, we know about our right to remain silent. We know we need to see a warrant. But doesn't ICE get mad, is what they asked me. Doesn't ICE get mad if we, you know, exercise our right to remain silent? Won't that upset them and anger them and make things worse? You know, and it's a really valid question, and it puts them in a really tough spot. So I'm just wondering if, you know, when we're giving our Know Your Rights presentations to our communities, it is tough. I mean, sometimes I used to say, like you said before, Hector, it's like you used to be able to reason with the officer and say, well, hey, this guy's child just had a liver transplant, and you know, he's the primary care provider for the child. But you know, so you would want to not be silent on that point. But yeah, what are you guys advising or hearing people talk about? I'm just curious.
Go for it. Otherwise, I will.
John Herrera, you were nodding. What do you think?
Yes, it's
Oh.
go for it, John.
Yeah, I'm with
that-
you, John.
Go for it, John. Otherwise, I will. Go ahead.
John, and the rest of the the people here at this call, I used to say back in, you know, 20 years ago when we started doing this job, like, you know, you should remain silent, you should, you know, exercise the right in the Constitution to be, you know, quiet, don't say anything. Now it's like we don't even know what to tell the clients because, or the community, because if you are silent and you are the only caregiver at home, you want to say something that, you know, prevent eyes, or at least to take a second thought, to reason that you are the only caregiver for this child's, you know, sick child or an adult or things like that. So we, definitely we're in different times now, but definitely what we will say always is, you know, make sure that you trying to find your own judgment on what to say that is not incriminating yourself, and things like, you know, don't lie, just be truthful if you have to say something. And at the end is like just using your own judgment to convince someone not to arrest you, which is not likely to happen now in this era, because what we're seeing and what we hear now is that the order is to show the power is on the this order coming from the White House, and they need to arrest as many people they can to show that every single arrest is the arrest of a criminal. That's the basic, and it's not like we're dealing with human beings that are in this country like many of us generations back, in your own families. I'm a newcomer basically, but you can tell that the history shows that these waves of migration come with a hatred, and by this point we are at the level of racism, and like showing that whoever is encounter ICE will be targeted as a criminal, regardless of is a collateral because their cousin is living in that apartment and he has a criminal record, and the dad waiting for the bus stop for their kids is just picking the berries for us to being able to feed us. And it doesn't matter. It's about like showing who has the power and how many people we can deport easy and quick.
Yeah, I'd like to throw something in there real quick that I'm doing this time different than I did last time. For the same question that you mentioned, John, is yes, you have the right to remain silent, but listen, I have witnessed ICE crackheads literally get physical with the people if they don't cooperate. I mean, they really do Gestapo style arrests. They don't think they are covered under the Constitution. So my advice to our clients right now into the community is start with your name. Make them prove to you that you're the person they're looking for. And the reason for that is the discrepancy between administrative warrants and a warrant for arrest. And oftentimes ICE has the name wrong. So once you can show them that they got the wrong person, hopefully they'll let you go. If they don't, and it is the right name or whatever, anything beyond that, you have the right to remain silent. Don't tell them where you work. Don't tell them where your wife is. Don't tell nothing, because they'll go there and continue your arrest, so to speak. So, yeah, I'm advising community people to, after the name verification, and if that's verified, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in court of law. And I teach them that. I practice that. I still think that's a good bet, and voice it to the immigration officer. I choose to remain silent. The other one is tell them you have an attorney, and here's the name of an attorney and a phone number they can call. So yeah, John, it wouldn't surprise me if I get a hold of your business cards. I'm going to be handing them out like crazy, because I want, when ICE shows up, I want them to tell the ICE agent that they have an attorney, and here's his name and phone number. So that's how I'm dealing with it this go around. A little bit different, a little still aggressive, but cautious that yeah, they can bust head because they don't cooperate. I've seen them do it.
Could I
just
ask
put
a
it in the chat.
question?
Yeah.
Could I ask a question? We have a Spanish Mass, and there's numbers of people that come. What can we do, or how can we, what are the things that we can do if, for example, they come into the church? What is the obligation that, or not the obligation, but what is the hope that we can say, hey, stop? You know, do they still have to have a ward to come into a church, or can they just wander in and start, you know, I have such a hard time envisioning this. And I know I come from a family of priests back in Yugoslavia and Croatia, and always the issue was the church was sacred. But now that's not what's happening. So as a community, what can we do? How can we, if they enter, what can we do? What are the response that people can have?
Yeah, I'll start, and maybe I should leave it to the Director of Catholic Charities to actually Legal Services to answer this. But John, I haven't seen it, but somebody told me on our ALA listserv that somebody filed a lawsuit. I think it was on the East Coast. I'm not sure that there's a nationwide injunction, but it was a church that filed suit on this issue because churches and schools and hospitals and other sensitive location, like the sensitive locations memo that Hector was talking about before, has been rescinded or altered, modified. So I guess at this point, I mean, it depends on what parts of the church are considered public And I think that like a client of mine who has a restaurant asked me this today, and he's like, can I just come into my restaurant? And I said, well, I mean, there are certain public areas or kind of areas that are seem public, or maybe all the way up to the register. But if you put a sign, and I remember an employment immigration attorney speaking in one of our this is back in Trump 1.0, saying you should have signage saying, you know, employees only beyond this point, or somehow delineating what's the public area and what's non-public. And then a person who's in charge that would then talk to ICE, and maybe it's the head priest, to say, you know, I'm in charge here, or maybe it's the parish council president, but I'm in charge here, you know, what's this about? Do you have a warrant to go beyond the public areas here? For example, maybe it's you know, the church basement or something where people are seeking sanctuary or refuge. That's my quick take on that, but I don't know, John, have you been counseling any churches on this, or anything else to
Yeah.
add to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think at this point that's all we can do is like trying to mark all the private spaces as private. However, we the only thing different is that you need to consider that if it's public for, if it's private for you think it only eyes, it has to be private for everyone, and it kind of follow. So it's not that you just mark things that are actually public and you're trying to pretend that it's private. So let's say the people to access the church, they don't need permission, right? It is a public space. But let's say that to enter the priest, you know, residency or whatever, or sacristy, whatever it's called, you have to have some sort of like privacy there. So you need to mark that clearly that those spaces are private. I am really concerned mostly with the situation. I think something happened in a church recently where someone was sitting at church, and he has a monitor, an on-call monitor, and his phone was ringing. And this was a small congregation, and the guy was being called by ICE, and ICE was outside in the parking lot, and he picked up the phone, and the monitor started beeping, and he had to get out, and he was arrested there outside of the church. So we are not sure if for real ICE will take the unless it's like an outrageous situation where people are like following someone to arrest, and that ended up like that person getting to the church. I don't see like I can't imagine that ICE will come into a service to arrest someone inside of the church. But that could happen. If that is what is the situation, I think John already explained that, you know, someone needs to take the courage to ask for a warrant and to actually see it, and if and get from there. But it's a really difficult times when we're thinking that, you know, sacred spaces are going to be not safe anymore.
I had a
Well, that's what
question.
I'm basically asking, because I stand at the
Mary,
back of the
I had a
church.
question, but you can go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I stand in the back of the church. I'm a liturgical coordinator. So
Mhm.
basically, they'd have to come through me to go into the service to arrest somebody. And I guess that's what I'm kind of saying is, you know, because we're going to meet with our parish priest to figure out what do we do? How can we speak for or come in to be the mediator between what is happening if somebody comes during a service, you know, and they say, you know, we have a right to go in. Well, I just, you know, it's the thought of it is just frightening, and I can't figure out how they would do it. But right now, there's nothing that to me would surprise me. Let's just put it that way.
I had two questions. Well, I'm going to be at the same meeting tomorrow, and we also have a St. Vincent de Paul food pantry that's on the premises. But we and a number of other churches on the west side also have a faith cafe where we serve the poor and marginalized. I think it's like 2 times a week. Is that right, Mary?
Sundays, every Sunday, and the last Thursday of the month. So tomorrow, in fact, tomorrow I'm cooking at Faith Cafe. So yeah, that's another scary area. But Faith Cafe has a board, and the board has to decide how they're going to handle that. That's not going to be something but the pantry, our St. Vincent de Paul pantry, is something that's a discussion that we'll have in those areas. And basically what we're wondering is, would it